right, welcome to a new episode of Real Estate vs. Technology. I'm your host, Norman Kinsey. We have our co-host, Mr. Dan Gandy. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me again.
Of course. And we have the one and only...
Welcome to Real Estate vs. Technology, where you'll get the inside scoop from top producing real estate professionals all around the country, best practices, techniques, and learn about what technology they're using to drive to ensure their success in this world we call real estate.
Jordan, Mott, welcome to Real Estate vs. Technology, our podcast show.
Thank you for having me today, guys.
Of course, man. We've been seeing you out there, been seeing you on your LinkedIn, 20,000 people, part of your network on there. So kudos to you. Our episode's all about you, your business area serve, how long you've been in the business, and more importantly, what technology like, say, LinkedIn, are you using to really grow your business? So let's get into a little bit about you first. So what areas do you serve, how long you've been in the business, and what primarily got you into the business, Jordan?
Yeah, so I'm a top producing realtor here in the Silicon Valley Bay Area. No specific geographic niche as far as that's concerned, but done business all throughout Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, Alameda County as well. So wherever clients need my services, I provide them. I've been in the industry about 6 years now, I think is what it is. Feels like a lifetime. And you know, it wasn't my original plan to go into real estate. Originally, I was planning on going into law enforcement. So one of my degrees is in criminology, but halfway through college, it became not such a good time to be a cop, and that's even more prevalent today. And I didn't want to put my wife or my future wife and kids in fear of whether dad was going to come home at the end of the day. So I also realized that I wasn't going to go be a lawyer. So I picked up a second major in public relations and advertising, which I just felt was more broad. And then, to be completely honest with you, I started calculating commissions on home prices here in the Silicon Valley, and I was like, wow, that sounds like a good idea. And it was an industry that I realized that there was no cap on what you could create. You were going to get out of it what you put into it work ethic wise. So that was kind of the short journey into getting into real estate.
Wow. That is awesome. I love how you went and got your degree. You're like, I'm just going to get an additional degree, have this support my career. And I love how you're just like, I just looked at the numbers. It made sense. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we could tell a different story that it's like that. I mean, it's a great honor to be a part of what is most people's biggest asset, right? And it truly is very important to be part of that journey. I mean, you're an essential figure in that process. And that was definitely part of the contributing factor that got me into the industry. But I think it was more so that entrepreneurial mindset that, okay, you can be your own boss, you can go create what you want to. And like I said, there's no cap on what you can create if you're willing to work as hard as you need to reach your specific goals.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Well, we've been seeing you crush it over at Intero. Why don't you give us a little just deep dive into your production and what you've been doing. We want to learn a little bit more about your business.
Yeah. So, like I said, I've been in the industry for about 6 years now. Every year my business has been progressively growing. I think the first year I did 8 transactions. The second year I did 12. And then there was a huge jump from second to third year where I went from 12 to 41. And then 41 to 46, and last year I closed 51 transactions for a little bit over $68 million of production volume, and I just looked yesterday and I've already surpassed last year. So right now with everything that's closed and pending, I've done 52 transactions so far this year and about 65 to 70 million of production. So hopefully we'll end up somewhere close to 80 to 90 million of production this year individually.
Wow.
Fantastic, man.
Man, that's crushing it. Do you have a team, transaction coordinator, or is it just you and yourself?
So it's me, one amazing assistant who handles the majority of my marketing stuff, and then a transaction coordinator behind the scenes that makes sure that everything's going smoothly paperwork wise. I didn't hire an assistant until year 4, I think. So I think I did 41 transactions the year prior, but I was burnt out. I mean, I was at the office till 11 o'clock most nights and in by 7 a.m. And so, I mean, at some point you have to diversify things that other people can do better than you can, and your time's more valuable to be doing other things, right? But I think it was hard for me to take that step because I want everything done in a certain way, and the quality of what I produce, I want it to be exactly the same. So finding someone that could replicate that and that I could rely on was definitely important in that process.
Yeah,
Awesome.
That's great. The outsourcing and that scalability is really important because you're an entrepreneur. So awesome. In terms of a couple questions I always ask in this segment is, what would you say is your one or two hottest technology that you use in your business that you could share with our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, so the biggest pieces of technology I think that I use these days are social media, such as Facebook and LinkedIn. There's two very different approaches that I take on there. I mean, when I got into the industry, I was told that I needed to go create a database of everyone that I knew, get their phone numbers, their emails, and their addresses, and put them on a drip campaign where they get my junk emails and my spam text messages and X, Y, and Z, right? And for some reason, like, I didn't feel entirely comfortable doing that with everyone that I knew. But what I realized is that everyone that would have been in that database, like, I was already friends with on Facebook. So Facebook was going to be a great way for me to keep myself in front of all of those people in your quote unquote sphere of influence. And that's held true to this day. I mean, there's many referrals that come from people that I'm friends with on Facebook or went to high school with 10 years ago, that I don't think those referrals would have came from if I wasn't actively using Facebook as a way to promote my business, just because, I mean, I haven't talked to them since high school, right? I mean, I doubt that they were going to go out trying to figure out if Jordan Mott was selling real estate, but because they see it every day and see the success that I've created, then there's no question that, okay, if I know of anyone with real estate needs, I'm going to reach out to Jordan. Right. And then LinkedIn was the primary form of prospecting that I used when I got into the industry to go and find new clients. What I realized is that you can get very specific with your search criteria on there. So I went to school back east at Penn State. And so originally when I got into the industry, I figured there was common ground with other Penn State alumni who lived here in the Bay Area. And so I could go and search for Penn State alumni who lived in the Bay Area that worked at Apple or worked at Google, and use that as a search criteria, and then send a mass amount of connections and put in an Excel spreadsheet what people I added on these days, and then go back a couple weeks later, and whoever decided to connect, then I direct message them and outreach that way. And so I exhausted the aspect of Penn State alumni pretty quickly. But then what I also realized is that the majority of those doing real estate transactions here in the Bay Area are in the tech industry, right? So I went and just started doing search criteria like, okay, people that work at Google that used to work at Apple. So because I knew something about all of those people immediately in their career paths, right? So, and then when I would go use the direct message aspect of things, I would include something about them and their career path at the beginning of the message before diving into the fact that I was a realtor, so that it looked personalized, right? It really wasn't based on just because it was search criteria that was met, but they don't know that, right? So it was a very strategic outreach, and in that regard, that's part of how I grew my LinkedIn network to be almost 20,000 connections these days. And not that I actively use it in the same regard as I did day one, because I have such a large network on there too. But I mean, if you follow me on there, you'll see that I post every day at a minimum. Sometimes it's multiple times a day.
Wow.
Great, man. No, thank you. I like the granularness of how you did that database archiving, and once you get that acceleration and trajectory and that database grows, the relationships grow and the referrals grow. So yeah, man, that's you've been the first on this show to really deep dive in how you made LinkedIn successful for you, because it's a platform where a lot of agents steer clear. They like put all their effort in Instagram and but they got followers in New York and Chicago and Pakistan, and you're sitting here and saying, no, like I can search right here in the Silicon Valley and be able to mine for gold.
Right, and that's not to say that I don't have connections in those places, right? Like, because I mean, when like I'll teach classes on LinkedIn sometimes, and people will be like, "Well, should we connect with other realtors?" I mean, my feeling is that you can never have too big of a network in this industry, because the more people you put yourself in front of, the more likelihood that you're going to have something materialize from such. So, like one day I woke up with a message in my inbox on LinkedIn from a realtor in New York that I've never talked to before, but was connected with on LinkedIn. And he's like, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I passed along your information to an agent in Texas." And I was like, "Okay, great. For what reason?" He's like, "I think she has a buyer that's looking to purchase in Palo Alto. If you're familiar with the Palo Alto market, it's a very expensive market, but just based off my LinkedIn presence, my information went from my LinkedIn to someone in New York to someone in Texas, and then back to me with a buyer referral." So like I said, you just never know where it's going to come from or who you're going to put yourself in front of that might need your services.
Wow. Not to mention, go a little off script here, the brokers don't really know how to leverage this approach. So that's where I feel like a lot of the millennials, as far as your stuff, Jordan, is putting emphasis on doing something outside of the box, which is traditional, to really be able to shine light in an area that I think needs to be more light needs to be shined on. So without Real Estate First Technology being on the show, our listeners and viewers might be at a brokerage just like knocking their head against the wall, like, I just don't get it. And you just helped out who knows how many people they're going to watch and listen to this. So thank you so much for that.
Well, right. And even for a newer agent these days, right? Like a lot of new agents rely on open houses for business when they first get in, because that's a great way to put yourself in front of people. But open houses right now are non-existent. So like if I was brand new into this industry today, I would take the same exact approach that I did when I started on LinkedIn and put myself in front of all of those people. And like, there's multiple agents that I've mentored that take the same approach to me as I did on LinkedIn, and it works if you do it consistently. Like, I mean, just like any other form of marketing or whatever tools you're going to use in your business, if you don't do it consistently, it's a waste of time.
Yeah, totally. It's a great takeaway.
That's awesome. So I think, Dan, you might have already answered. I mean, that was everything.
Yeah.
Jordan, you're on it. You basically went through all the questions that Dan had already. So now we know you've been in the business for 6 years. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, Jordan?
You know, I just want to continue to grow yearly. As long as I continue to increase production and number of transactions and the amount of people that I'm helping, like that's positive for me, right? I mean, I've had thoughts about bringing on a buyer's agent to be able to better serve more buyers in the marketplace. I don't necessarily really have the desire to go and create a huge team, to be honest with you. Like when I look at some of these bigger teams and top producers with bigger numbers, I mean, their bottom line as far as what they're taking home at the end of the day is very similar. So, I mean, the responsibility associated with making sure that so many other people uphold the image of your brand doesn't necessarily appeal to me. But I mean, if I'm on track, probably if progression takes place as it has the last couple of years, that next year will be $100 million production year. And I don't think that there's very many agents in the marketplace that can say that they're individually producing $100 million a year. And so, I mean, that's one of the short-term goals. And yeah, I mean, just to continue to grow, right? I mean, we have a lot of new agents that come into our office that I make myself completely available to, as far as mentoring them and telling them exactly what I did when I got into the business. I mean, the reality is the majority of people aren't going to do it anyway, so why not share it with them? There's probably 2 out of 50 that I've talked with and met with that actually went through and did what I told them to. One of them just made over $500,000 his second year, and one of them's crushing it his first year so far, despite the pandemic. But I think as far as tech's concerned, just to touch on that real quick, like people are going to really fall behind these days if they're not utilizing tech in their business, just because, I mean, in a pandemic, a lot more things are done virtually, right? So, I mean, I was ahead of the game in regards to marketing my listings with 3D tours and videos and websites that were hubs for such, but I think a lot of people are now trying to catch up with that. But if you're not utilizing tech in a tech world, and even more so in the tech capital of the world here in the Silicon Valley, I mean, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage in regards to not only marketing your listings, but being able to put yourself in front of new clients.
We have one of the most sophisticated, highly educated, tech-savvy audiences in the Silicon Valley, and being able to connect that and have them trust you. A lot of times when we were doing a lot of luxury real estate and that lost got us the Palo Alto market, the first question they'd always ask is like, tell me about your marketing. Like, what are you doing? Like, I want to know. I run a $100 million company and I'm their VP of marketing. So you got to win me over. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and at the end of the day, I mean, old school methods still work, right? Like the bricks and mortar and mailing flyers and dropping flyers on doorsteps. I mean, that's still a huge part of my business. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I probably have 30,000 pieces of marketing material that goes out to homes every month, and that brings a great return. But I think if you solely focus on one aspect of marketing and one aspect of generating business, if something happens to that one aspect, then you're screwed, for lack of better terms. And I think that's what we're seeing right now in the industry with a lot of agents that relied on open houses as the main way that they generated business. They weren't ready for, well, I don't think anyone was ready for a pandemic, but I mean, they weren't ready for their business to transition through that pandemic and the obstacles and hurdles associated with such, that I think nowadays you see top producers thriving even more than they were, and some of those that were just getting by are now going to, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on who you ask, be eliminated from the industry.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, and I got to say that I love the fact that you saw the opportunity, you did your homework, you took action, you were consistent, and then you had success from it. And then you went and then said, I see what the top performers are doing and where they're at. And instead of you going and learning the hard way, you said, well, I'm just being observant and I'm looking at where they're at and I'm looking at their responsibilities and I'm not interested. So you're just focusing on what you're interested in and what you want to do. And I love that the main goal is wife, kids, flexibility of schedule, and being able to have good work-life balance. So, man, we appreciate you being on the show big time. And
can I just throw in one more tip as far as I'm concerned with my social?
I got two more things for you. I got any books you would recommend, and then the floor is open. So go ahead and take it away.
Books and I don't get along. I don't read. So
okay.
That question gets asked every time I'm interviewed, just because I think that a lot of successful people do read, but that's not for me. So not that I don't know how to read, I just don't really enjoy it, right? But I was just gonna skip back real quick to social media and like the consistency of such. Like, basically all three of the platforms that I use on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, all of them mimic each other. So there's a very big consistency on there. And on anything that I post social media wise, like, it always has my tagline on it, which is, who do you know of looking to buy or sell real estate in the Silicon Valley Bay Area? I am never too busy for your referrals, right? And that becomes ingrained in people's minds because they see it so often. Like, I coached high school football for 4 years, and some of the kids followed me on social media. And it was funny, we were in the weight room one day and one of the kids just stops lifting weights and he's like, guys, I got an announcement for you. Coach Mott's never too busy for your referrals. Like, and I was like, good, that's great 20-year and advanced prospecting right there. But like, it becomes ingrained in people's minds if you do it consistently. And something about social media too is that I think a lot of people trip themselves up in regards to the fact that they think they have to post something super elaborate or come up with something amazing to post. It's simple. Like, it should not take you more than 45 seconds to create something to post on your social media networks on a daily basis that reminds people that you're in the real estate industry and there to help them.
Wow, amazing. And you didn't even have to ask my question. I didn't have to ask it because that's what we just had a guest in from Florida, and she said pretty much the same thing. She's like, you just got to be authentic, jump on social media, share that you're doing real estate, let people experience what you're experiencing on a day-to-day so they can have a little bit insider look And once they have an insider look, you'll be the 1 or 2 persons they interview when they're going to sell their house. So it's awesome.
That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate you being on the show, Jordan. I think there's a lot of good takeaways for our viewers and our listeners that can take from this and apply to their business. And we hope they do. Dan, thank you so much for being co-host today.
Yeah, thank you guys. Great to see you, Jordan.
Yep, thanks for having me.
And thanks to our listeners and viewers for tuning in today. It's our goal for you to take something from our episode so you can apply to your business to have more massive success. And we'll see you on the next one.
Hope you found value. If you like the episode, give it a thumbs up. Comment below with what you learned. And if you go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell, you'll be notified for new podcast episodes coming out. Now, I want to go ahead and show you, if you see here on your screen, you can click join our Facebook group page, and you can go ahead and be a member of our community page. We love to be able to share what type of technology you're using on this page. And also, if you want to go ahead and do some networking all across the country, you can go ahead and network on this Facebook group page. If you're a real estate professional, focus on a specific niche, whether it's a buyer, specific type, seller, specific type, or a specific area. We would love to hear your story and how are you growing and scaling your business using technology to focus on that demographic. And if you're a technology owner, have a technology you want to share, and you want to be featured on Real Estate vs. Technology, the podcast, all you have to go ahead and do is send us an email at REvsTEchTalk@gmail.com, and we'll see you on the next one.